So we are recording again. Let me see if I can show you my screen here. Okay, so, oh, hang on. This is not what I wanted. This is, let me see. Can you see my PowerPoint there? Maybe I have to switch here again. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is again, just wanted to, as we are continuing something that we did before watching Tiago's video. I have a few final comments with respect to this paper, Urban Computing Leveraging Location-Based Social Networks Data. In fact, I'm looking forward to our discussion at Moodle afterwards, and you'll see that what I proposed there at Moodle today, let me see if I just proposed one question there, and we'll go to that soon. Let me see here, hang on. Yeah, I just proposed one question instead of doing the way that we do most of the times, in which I have a set of questions for you. I think that you probably, while you were reading this paper, and mainly considering that this paper is a collection of other papers and ideas that many different authors have shared about the research that they're doing using urban computing as a new way of trying to better understand the city. I think that while you were reading that, you were having your own ideas, and I'm really interested in hearing about those ideas. I believe that some of you may even be thinking of projects for your master's dissertation or some other research projects that involve collective intelligence somehow, and maybe even, why not, urban computing. So I included there in our Moodle, and we'll go there soon and start discussing that. But I included there just one question, or just one proposition, that is basically to ask you to share ideas that you had about possibilities of using social networks, and more specifically these location-based social networks, as ways of getting information, getting knowledge that we can use somehow to make wiser decisions. Okay, I had a one last slide that I wanted to show you before we go there, which is this one here, in which I want to discuss a few challenges and opportunities that had already been noticed by Tiago and his colleagues, but which we definitely need to reinforce here with respect to urban computing. First of all, although it's a very interesting tool, and although we've already explored all the reasons why we should use it, I mean, there is a lot of data available, but we have to be aware that there is surely some data bias in the data that we can harness from social networks. Not everyone is there. There are people that are not there because they do not have access to the right technology. Or let's say to the technology, not to the right technology, to the technology. There are people that are not there because they don't like the technology. They would have access, but they just simply don't want to be there. There are people that are not there for several different reasons. And when we assume that the data that we are collecting from those social networks represents the population, we may be just getting information from a biased sample. It's still a sample. It still brings us knowledge, but we have to be aware of that. We live in a world in which not everyone has the same possibilities or the same interests, and therefore there will be groups that will be overrepresented and other groups that may be underrepresented. So conclusions have to be taken with a lot of care. Another issue there is, but there is this is a challenge, but it's also there is an opportunity for us to keep researching and finding ways in which we can maybe cross data from different sources to make sure, or at least to reduce the chances of being biased or being too biased in those kinds of analysis. Another thing is another great possibility, but also a huge challenge, is how to integrate multiple data sources. Leonardo was telling us in the first part of this class that yes, now we do have access to a lot of open data provided by municipalities and other agencies from all different government levels. One of the challenges that we have there is that those data, they come in different formats, which doesn't make it easy for us to integrate them. Sometimes they're simply, we have data that is more quantitative, other data that is more qualitative. We have to figure out ways of integrating and making sense of these things. And again, the reason why we should start doing this yesterday is because we each time have more data and more possibly relevant data, but we have to figure out how to integrate and how to analyze such a huge amount of data in ways to make sense out of that. Location-based social networks, data collection is still challenging. Some of these applications make it easy for the researcher or for those who are interested in collecting data to get access to those data. In other cases, it goes against even their business proposition or their business interests, and they try to make it hard. But we surely are clever enough to think of ways of dealing with that and improving the possibilities of collecting such data so that we can analyze it further afterwards. As Thiago showed in some of his slides, we tend to act in life in a routine way. So whatever we did yesterday and the day before yesterday, and even this morning, may be a good hint on what we'll be doing tomorrow morning. So this kind of data can be used for prediction and classification. But again, we have to figure out the soundest ways of doing that in order to reduce bias, in order to improve the quality of the analysis that we can have. And finally, the last item that Thiago and his friends and his colleagues included as challenges and opportunities is that there's huge opportunity for the development of new applications and services. In applied computing, that's one of the contributions that we can give to society. But from an academic perspective, we should always think that we are not here simply to build applications. In our research problems, we should always have something that is not only empirically important, but more than that, theoretically relevant. And so we should start from a theoretical problem that we want to solve with whatever artifact we're going to build to collect data, analyze data, and provide any results based on that. I think I mentioned previously today that one of my undergraduate students wrote his final work, and we submitted it to AMSIS, the America's Conference on Information Systems. The paper was conditionally accepted, and it wasn't fully accepted at first because the reviewers claimed, and I think they're right on that the paper was a very good description of an artifact that was built, but we didn't explore the problem so much. We didn't talk about the problem, the theoretical problem that we were trying to address with the paper, and therefore they were not completely sure if the paper had an academic value. So we'll be working on that, but this is just to tell you that whenever we work on an artifact, as engineers, as computer scientists or whatever, we have to think that academically or even scientifically, the important issue is what is the theoretical problem that we're trying to tackle with it, and if we're not able to explain that, others may just think that whatever we do is the result of our technical skills, but it may be an interesting product, but it may not necessarily be something of academic or scientific interest. There are some ways of dealing with that. One methodology that has been used in many situations to deal with the development of technology, but from a scientific perspective, has been dealt in a paper that one of my students wrote a few years ago, and that you can find in our links in the website Padilla. The idea there was that we should develop a methodology in which we first decide very precisely what we want to research and what our purpose is. Then we build the artifact, and then we go back and check if our artifact helped solve that problem. So I recommend you to check on Padilla's work for clues on how to deal with that. Okay, I'm inclined to get into Moodle for a discussion with you on ideas that this paper has possibly brought to you. But before we get there, I'd like to just give you the mic here, allow you to say something. I understand that Moodle is very good, but at the same time, it's all written and very formal, bureaucratic. Maybe there's something that you want to say before we break here and get into our forum. You seem quieter than my undergrads. The other day it was a whole class. So, I mean, we were talking for 2 hours and it was difficult to get them to say anything. But yeah, but still, any thoughts, any ideas? Yeah, Leymar.
Yeah, I think that nowadays the data that that we get from the urban computing, it is being used more to commercial applications. For example, to try to predict applications, trying to predict the next product that you will buy or something like that. But reading the article, we can see that there are much more that we can achieve with those data. We can create another kinds of applications to contribute to the cities and make those places better places to the population, right? Trying to giving some, I don't know, we can tell that, giving some power to the citizens to cooperate, giving them information so they know what they can can help, how they can help the authorities, the cities, the other citizens. I guess it's something like in this direction that the article speaks about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lemar, for sure. And I think one of the interesting things about collective intelligence in general and all of its, let's say, well, whenever I talk about, for example, urban computing, and I say it's part of collective intelligence, some of my colleagues say, come on, you want everything to be your area of research. And indeed, I think that collective intelligence is such a broad scope of research that we have to be careful not to get lost there. But still, I have this feeling that the collective intelligence can really be something powerful if we can empower the citizens more than anything else. Companies usually have, and mainly big companies have a lot of money. They can they can stimulate people to work for them so that they have their own objectives achieved. But we as citizens in the past, we didn't have a way of connecting to each other, and we had a very little opportunity of of engaging in projects that were meaningful to us, but in which we could work not too much, right? We still have to work for the Microsofts and whatever companies we work for to be paid, to have our salaries. But it would be good if we could engage in projects in which we just give 15 minutes of our time a day. But if it's thousands of people that have interests that are sort of related, that becomes something powerful, right? Open source software has proved that this is possible, but we can go much further than just doing open software, which was something that only computer scientists and people in the engineering field could do. With collective intelligence, we can involve people from all different areas to work together on things that they believe without spending too much energy. Not because they don't want to spend a lot of energy on that, but because they still have, we still live in a world in which our subsistence comes from the money we get from companies for which we work for money and not for love, right? So so I really believe that we have an opportunity to become much better citizens in a world of open data, in a world of where urban computing can be used. But of course, it's a matter of if this is going to be used for empowering or for surveillance, which I think Leitmar had sent us an article the other day, which is going to be maybe the theme for our next class. So next week, we'll be discussing these possibilities. Are we building a better society based on the collective intelligence that we are generating? Can we do that or not? Is all this technology going to be used to tell us what to do and to supervise and to fiscalize what we're doing? Or is it there to allow us all to each one put a little effort into things that everyone or many people believe that is a noble cause? Okay.
This is something that I was going to add, because as we are discussing the challenges on gathering data, we are now living on this quarantine because of this virus, and we are there are a lot of discussion about the government using cell phone data to monitor where people are gathering most and try to act on that. And this causes a discussion on invasion of privacy, And so this is one of, I would say that's another challenging for us, trying to gather information and trying not to go overstep the privacy of the rights of each one of us. And yes, this is another challenge that I would say.
Yeah, it will be very important in the years to come that we discuss privacy in ways of getting regulations to tell how far companies can go, how far governments can go, and even how far we can go as citizens in collecting and analyzing data, or the way that this data, the kinds of analysis that can be performed, and so on and so forth. But you're completely right, Leonardo. It's scary to know that even if they're saying, oh, it's aggregates data, it's scary to know that we are developing technology that allows governments to have that kind of control on the population. And it's even, or it's just as scary to know that before companies have all those, all that data, and that they are using that data to fulfill their own objectives, which are not necessarily our objectives as a society. So I don't have I don't have a final answer to if we should or how we should proceed with this. I think that as we proceed, we'll have to start setting boundaries of what is what should be done and what shouldn't. And in fact, I think we should even start setting boundaries that we have already passed, right? We should say, well, okay, here we have gone too far already. We have to step back, and we're only going to be able to do that as people become more informed on the way that their privacy is being invaded, and to which extent that is happening. Maybe this only happens after our privacy has already been invaded, and I'm sure that this is the case right now. But maybe we could say, okay, I was not so aware, or even if I didn't have an idea of how far things were going, but we'll have to step back, and we'll have to define policies. This is acceptable, this isn't, and even stop the development of technologies that allow to go in directions that we don't believe that are right. One thing that our society can easily do, but we have to decide that collectively, is exactly which kinds of technological efforts we are going to put our money as a society, or our efforts as society. Humans and citizens can definitely decide which roads we want to pave for the future and which ones we don't want to, right? I think we have been paving the wrong roads in many cases, which makes it easier for people to just go that way without concerning too much where the road is taking, right? And in fact, this is some of you take another class with me on technology and society, in which we become a little more philosophical, and where we discuss issues like that, and saying our technology is very strong means, but they say very little about our ends, where we want to go. If we don't stop and decide where we want to go, there is this very clear possibility that our technologies will decide for us, and they will take us somewhere, but not necessarily where we as citizens, as human beings, would like to go. But anyway, this is a little too philosophical for the moment, although I do think that collective intelligence needs to be discussed from a philosophical approach. In fact, it's where it all started. We have some philosophers who are at the heart of the discussion of collective intelligence. Pierre Levy as one of the most optimistic ones, and who thinks that we're building something that mankind will be proud of, but several others that discuss it from a darker perspective and say that we may be going the ways other animals develop their own structures, and we may just become ants or bees or whatever, in which we individually have no control, and there's either someone with total control on our intelligence, or really no control at all from the individuals, and it becomes simply a hive thing. Any other thoughts for now? So maybe let's go to our Moodle. I just posed one question for reflection there, but I hope that depending on your answers, the colleagues can contribute. I hope that some of you will be able to even provide some ideas of projects that things that you are thinking of doing for your own projects, and maybe the colleagues then can help with ideas. So this time it's not a lot of questions from me, it's just a place where you can pose your questions or your answers, and then the colleagues will contribute there. Okay, so we'll spend our next half an hour there, and then after that I look forward to seeing you next week to discuss that idea of surveillance or empowering of citizens based on the possibilities of collective intelligence. All right, see you then on Moodle in a couple of minutes.